I couldn't believe how late it was. My infant daughter and I had driven up north for the day to visit my mother, her grandmother. The day was full of laughs and of course presents and tickles for my daughter. My mother spoiled her rotten. We had gone out to dinner, which my baby girl fell asleep in the middle of, and we put her in the carrier and covered her with a new pink blanket. When dinner was over, we said our goodbyes and my sleeping girl and I loaded the car with all of her new things and away we went. It was about 10 p.m. by the time we got on the road, and we had a good 2-hour drive ahead. I was glad that the next day was a Sunday and I would be able to catch up on some sleep. I played music quietly to keep me alert, and it worked for the first hour and a half of my drive. But at about 11:30 p.m, something else happened that made me more alert than I've ever been in my entire life. It was dark, and the lights along this country road were spaced out pretty far, so my headlights were pretty much the only lights that I could rely on. But as I turned along a slow curve, I saw something ahead. On the right side of the road was a creek, and in order to make sure there were no incidents with people driving into the gully, a guardrail was in place. It had a cement blocks attached every so often that held the lights in place. As my high beam stretched brightly into the darkness, I saw something on the cement block up ahead. I squinted to make out the dark silhouette. Just then, the figure leapt from the cement block and flew through the air. It landed solidly on the road, directly in my path. I watched as it slowly began to stand up tall and raise its arms over its head. I saw the muscular thing stretch until it had shown its full height, about 7 foot tall. Its furry black arms waved wildly in the air, and as I approached in my car, I could see its muscular build and its familiar features. At first, when it was still on the side of the road, I had thought it was a black bear trying to hunt, since deer are prevalent in this area. But as it stood there, I could see the human-like qualities of its limbs and face. It looked like a giant, very hairy, ugly, naked man. Then it did something completely unexpected. It crouched down, and I thought it was going to jump back into the forest that surrounded us, but instead it laid down, stretching its full body across the lane. It was too late for me to stop or swerve. I hit it, him, whatever it was. I hit it with my little Honda Civic. I had expected there to be a huge crunching sound, and my thoughts immediately went to my sleeping baby. Would we get hurt? Would our car be drivable? I didn't want us to be stranded. But to my surprise, we rolled over it pretty easily. There was a thumping sensation, and I knew that the position of my car had made me run over its head. I felt sick thinking I could have killed someone or some poor creature, but the image of it standing in the road made me uneasy enough to assault my guilt. I stopped the car for a moment. When we had gone about 200 feet, I looked in my rearview mirror to see it laying there still. It wasn't moving. Panic, fear and concern flooded me in a mix of waves of emotion. I thought about getting out of the car, but I worried that maybe it was still alive and angry. I couldn't risk getting hurt, not with my baby in the car. That's when I made the decision that it still haunts me. It floored it. I didn't stop until I got home. When we finally pulled into my driveway, I finally felt safe. I immediately grabbed the carrier with my baby. My little angel and I went inside. After putting her into her crib, I paced the house. The rest of my family were out of town and unreachable by phone. I had no idea what to do. After worrying and pacing, I finally decided to call 911 to report that I thought it had been a bear. I knew that no one would take my call seriously if I said it was a Bigfoot. After the call, I went out to check the damage to the car. I feared the worst. I really thought that I would have to take it in and explain the unexplainable to the mechanic, but the damage was minimal. My only license plate was bent, and one of the bolts. I found a hair from the creature. I thought about keeping it, but reasoned that it was crazy and threw it out. No one would believe me, I knew that. I called the police the next day to check, and found that there was no record of my call and nothing suspicious reported along any of the country roads. When my family returned, I told them the story. Of course they thought I was making it up. I was too tired from being a new mum. My mind was playing tricks on me. After a while I stopped talking about it. My family all still make fun of me, but I'd learned not to respond. But I know what really happened that night, and I know it's still out there.